We have our second name confirmed for the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2025. Joining Triple H will be Michelle McCool. During an appearance Friday morning on ESPN's Get Up, McCool was surprised with the news by Triple H, who was not there with her, but appeared on screen while she and The Undertaker were in studio. And Triple H said that since The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, they surprised him about his induction into the Hall of Fame. This was his way of basically getting him back, which made it sound like she was only going into the Hall of Fame this year because he wanted to get The Undertaker back. But she got very emotional, and even The Undertaker started wiping away tears. Kayfabe is deader than he used to be. So that would make them the third husband and wife couple to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I know Edge and Beth Phoenix are both in, and Booker T and Sharmell are in. And I think that's it. So Taker and Michelle would be the third. I really thought that somebody like Mickie James or Victoria would go in this year, especially with Mickie being a part of that LFG show, which premieres tonight on A&E. But I guess Michelle is on there too. She's in at least one of the episodes. And look, it's not like she wasn't going in at some point. 4-time women's champion, part of the first ever women's table match as part of Lay Cool against Beth Phoenix and Natalya. She really was more associated with her run as one half of Lay Cool with Layla L than her singles run, which is what makes me laugh because she just did an interview with Chris Van Vliet. And like it literally just dropped this week. And the video version went up on YouTube on Thursday. And Chris asked her about the possibility of going into the Hall of Fame one day. And she said, of course, it would be an honor, but Lay Cool is what put her on the map. And she had hoped that when she goes in, or if she ever goes in, she wants it to be together with Layla. And then like 48 hours later, she's announced as a solo inductee for the Hall of Fame. Like, oh, well. She's not wrong, though. If she was going in, they really should have put her in with Layla. They should have gone in together. Layla hasn't done anything with the company in years. Since she left, she's kept a very low profile. The thing with Michelle McCool, and I always have fun with, like, when we land on her and be the booker on the streams and stuff, sometimes I'll hit the buzzer. And it's not because of her. It's not like I land on Rosa Mendez or something. But the thing with Michelle McCool is that she was very athletic, like growing up, and it showed in her matches, like some of the moves that she would do. She played softball and volleyball when she was younger. She did fitness contests. She taught kickboxing. So she was very athletic and very active. Today, they have tons of women who come from athletic backgrounds, right? They're recruiting NIL athletes and all of this stuff. She came to WWE, I think, 10 years too soon. Because when she was there, it wasn't about how good of a wrestler you were. It wasn't about how athletic you were. It was about how hot you were, right? There were a lot of blondes like her running around. Vince had a type. That's what it was about. It was about that, and it was about what dumb storyline Vince McMahon could come up with where he can make out with you on TV. I can't think of many matches outside of that tables match, in Lay Cool that she had that really stand out to me. It doesn't mean that she was a bad wrestler. Right? She wasn't. There just wasn't a whole lot that stands out for me from that Divas era. I actually like the finish of that tables match, by the way, because if you remember it, and I won't fault you if you don't, but Michelle and Layla, they get shoved, they're like on the ropes, and they get shoved backwards by Natty. And they land on this table. And the table, it doesn't fully break. It just sort of sags, like it bends a little bit. And because, of course, they don't weigh enough to break the table. And the crowd could have shit all over it. You fucked up or whatever. But I remember the crowd, they started going crazy. And they're yelling for Natty, like, to jump off. Just, like, dive off. And finally, she dives off the top rope with a splash. And she puts them through the table. And it got a great reaction. I know Lay Cool, they did that terrible Piggy James angle. And there was a Royal Rumble match with Michelle McCool and Mickie James that went like 20 seconds. It's like the women's matches back then, they were routinely put in the death spot on pay-per-views. Like if you wanted a piss break, they got the women's match, it's time to go to the bathroom. Like that's what they were put there for. Right before the main event, every show. And if the matches on TV got more than 2 minutes, it was a miracle. And given their experience level, for some of the divas, maybe that was for the better. But for the ones who could actually work, I'm sure it was frustrating as fuck. And she told some stories on Undertaker's podcast. She was on his show last year, and she told one story. She had a match with Melina, and it was a Night of Champions match. And they got in trouble for doing a DDT spot on top of the barricade, which was a no-no for the women back then. Like, oh, you can't do that. You can't outshine the boys, right? The women are not supposed to be doing that sort of thing, so they got heat for that when they got to the back. And then there was a match with her and Victoria where they got to the back, and they're changing out of their gear, and somebody comes in and tells them, you need to go back out and redo your match. And they're like, what? Why? And this person says, well, your punches look too good. Right? Because you can't have the women out there throwing better punches than the guys. And she said even, Chris Jericho heard what was going on and stood up for her and said, well, if they're punching better than the guys, then you know what? That's on the guys. Throw better punches, which is 100% right. So they had to go out and redo the entire match all over again, which I'm sure confused the hell out of the crowd. But she said from that point on, they instituted a no punching and no kicking rule for the women's matches. Right? So that's what she claims anyway. But that's the kind of bullshit that the Divas were up against back then. Right? Then came the era of the Bellas and the 30-second matches where they were getting their time cut right before they walked out to go to the ring. And then came the, give Divas a chance hashtag, and we all know what happened after that. That's why I say, like, she's one of those women who came along 10 years too early. So maybe they can have Layla be the one to induct her, but that's the second Hall of Fame name for this year's class. And we took one giant step this week towards another Hall of Fame induction that is long overdue, because this week we learned that WWE has signed Bill Eadie and Barry Darsow, Demolition, to WWE Legends contracts. They are back in the fold, which means new action figures and video games, if they weren't already in the video game, and they could take their rightful place in the Hall of Fame. Right? They each had very accomplished careers outside of Demolition. Bill Eadie was the masked superstar, and I think had a couple of other gimmicks. Barry Darsow was Crusher Khrushchev in the NWA. And then Repo Man many years later. I guess accomplished is not a word I would use to describe Repo Man. I gotta tell you, though, I still get a kick out of those old Repo Man vignettes. Yeah, they've been putting out Coliseum videos on the Vault YouTube channel. They had one, I just watched it last week, and in it, they had a bunch of Repo Man vignettes where, I don't know where he was, but like, he ran into like a regular person on the street who was filming something with his camera, and he's like, he was going to steal the camera. He goes, I won't steal the camera. I won't repo the camera from you if you just come with me and film me. And the guy follows him around, and he's like repossessing various things. So like he just goes around and like he steals a little girl's bike, and then he breaks into someone's garage and says they missed their last payment. They were a day late on their last payment. He goes, and you know what I always say, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine too. And that fucking cackle. How can you not be entertained by that? It was a ridiculous gimmick, but like he tried to make the most of it. Smash Axe left, and so he had nothing to do. He needed a job, and so that's what they had him doing. But and don't forget Hole-in-One Darsow. Hole-in-One Darsow with the golf gimmick in WCW. But forget all that shit. When I was a kid, Demolition was the shit. Now, if you watch the NWA, if you grew up on that, you had the Road Warriors. Okay, I knew of the Road Warriors, but I didn't really grow up watching the Road Warriors. I read about them in the magazines and stuff, but if I were like me, I was watching the WWF, it was Demolition. Demolition and the Hart Foundation. Those were my two favorite tag teams. 3-time tag team champions. Their first run as champions lasted 478 days, which was a record that stood until the New Day beat it in 2016. That record stood for 27 years. And Axe, he was blackballed from the company after he sued them years ago over the rights to the Demolition name. And the two of them, they signed on to that big concussion lawsuit, the CTE lawsuit that ended up getting dismissed. But Bill Eadie is 77 years old now. Barry Darsow is 65. It's time. Before it's too late, it's time. It's time to hear that theme music one more time. I figured their chances of going in were pretty good after Darsow did that interview a few months ago where he said they were invited to attend the Hall of Fame as guests last year in Philadelphia, but they had to turn it down because they had a prior commitment. So if they were invited to attend, even if it was only as guests, then that meant that the ice had thawed. And, with Vince McMahon being gone, it was only a matter of time. This is the next logical step towards an induction, and I hope they do it this year. They were part of my predictions for this year's Hall of Fame class when I made them last year. Remember? Said John Cena, right? So I was wrong on that. Mickey James, which is not happening. But I think the other ones have a shot. I had Demolition, I had Sid Vicious, and I had Haku. And I still think they have a pretty good shot.